The morning air hangs heavy with the scent of freshly cut grass as the yellow school bus hisses to a stop in front of Riverside High. The doors swing open, and among the chattering students, one figure steps out in deliberate silence. Mae Carter stands motionless for a moment, her dark eyes scanning the red brick building with quiet calculation. At 17, she has already learned that new schools are battlefields, ones where the rules are unwritten, the alliance is fragile, and the predators always testing for weakness. This is her third school in 2 years, not because of bad behavior or failing grades, but because of a life that demands discretion. Her father, a man whose name carries weight in boardrooms, but remains carefully absent from school records, believes in anonymity. So Mae dresses plainly: jeans, a simple hoodie, sneakers with no flashy logos. Nothing that would draw attention. Nothing that would hint at the private jets, the security detail, the penthouse in Manhattan that she calls home when she isn't being shuffled between normal schools as part of some unspoken lesson about humility. The hallway swallows her whole. Lockers slam. Sneakers squeak against polished linoleum. Laughter erupts in bursts, then fades just as quickly. She moves through the chaos like a shadow, absorbing details. The way the popular girls cluster near the water fountain, flipping their hair. The way the teachers' pets linger near classroom doors, eager to please. And then there, Carlos Mendoza. He leans against a row of lockers like he owns them, his Letterman jacket hanging open to reveal a frame built for football. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a smirk that says he's never been told no. Around him, his teammates orbit like satellites, laughing too loud at his jokes, straightening when he glances their way. The hierarchy here is clear. Carlos is at the top, and everyone else exists in relation to him. Their eyes meet. Just for a second. Mae doesn't look away immediately, a small, dangerous thing. A challenge. His smirk twitches, then sharpens. He tilts his head slightly, as if amused by the idea of someone new daring to hold his gaze. A silent question hangs between them. "You think you belong here?" She doesn't answer. Instead, she turns and melts into the stream of students, feeling the weight of his stare between her shoulder blades. The bell rings. First period is American history. Mae takes a seat near the back, where she can observe without being noticed. The teacher drones on about the Civil War, but her attention is elsewhere. She catalogs the room. The girl 2 rows ahead chewing her pen cap nervously. The boy by the window doodling in his notebook instead of taking notes. And then there's Carlos, slouched in his seat, one arm draped over the back of his chair like a throne. He doesn't even bother pretending to pay attention. When the teacher turns to write on the board, a wad of paper hits Mae's desk. She doesn't flinch, doesn't look at it right away. But when she unfolds it, the message is clear in jagged handwriting. "Welcome to Riverside. Hope you last longer than the last new girl." She crumples the note and drops it to the floor. Lunch is worse. The cafeteria is a minefield of cliques, and Mae has no territory here. She picks the emptiest table she can find, unpacking her lunch with methodical precision. Across the room, Carlos holds court at the center table, his laughter carrying over the din. She feels eyes on her. Whispers. The weight of being the unknown variable in an already solved equation. A tray slams down across from her. "Mind if I sit here?" The girl is small, with round glasses and a nervous smile. Mae nods once. She doesn't ask why this girl, clearly not part of the popular crowd, has chosen her. Maybe it's pity. Maybe it's strategy. Either way, Mae knows better than to trust it. The afternoon passes in a blur of half-remembered classrooms and sideways glances. By the final bell, the whispers have grown louder. Asterisk, who is she? Where'd she come from? Why doesn't she talk? Asterisk. Mae doesn't answer any of them. As she steps outside, the sun is already dipping low, casting long shadows across the parking lot. She spots Carlos leaning against a pickup truck, surrounded by his usual entourage. He's watching her, waiting. She walks past without a word, but she knows this isn't over. Carlos Mendoza has marked her as something to break, and Mae Carter has never been broken before. The morning light filters through the high windows of Riverside High, casting long rectangles of gold across the scuffed linoleum floors. Mae Carter moves through the hallway with the same quiet precision as the day before, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her expression unreadable. She knows how this works. The first day is observation. The second day is when they test you. Carlos Mendoza leans against the lockers near her homeroom, surrounded by his usual entourage. Football players with too much confidence and not enough sense. Girls who laugh too loudly at their jokes. He watches her approach, his dark eyes tracking her with the lazy interest of a predator sizing up prey. The hallway seems to narrow around them, the noise fading to a dull hum as the other students sense the shift in the air. He doesn't move at first. Lets her get close. Then, with deliberate casualness, he shifts his weight, his shoulder knocking into hers as she passes. The impact isn't hard, but it's enough. Her books slip from her grip, hitting the floor with a series of sharp slaps. A notebook skids a few feet away, pages splayed open. The hallway freezes for half a second, just long enough for everyone to register what just happened. Carlos doesn't apologize, doesn't even pretend it was an accident. He just smirks, waiting. His friends erupt into laughter, the sound sharp and grating. A few onlookers pause, eyes darting between Mae and Carlos, waiting to see how she'll react. Will she cry? Stutter out an apology like she's the one at fault? Maybe even snap at him, giving him the excuse to escalate? Mae doesn't do any of those things. She crouches slowly, methodically gathering her books. Her fingers close around the spine of her history textbook, then her notebook. She doesn't rush, doesn't fumble. She moves with the same quiet control as before, as if this moment is nothing more than a minor inconvenience. When she stands, she doesn't look at Carlos, doesn't acknowledge him at all. She just walks away. The laughter stutters, then dies. The silence that follows is heavier than the noise. Carlos's smirk falters. This isn't how this is supposed to go. New kids, especially the quiet ones, are supposed to fold. They're supposed to shrink, to give him that flicker of fear or anger that lets him know he's still in control. But Mae, she doesn't even give him the satisfaction of a reaction. It's like she's already dismissed him. And that pisses him off. The rest of the morning passes in uneasy quiet. Mae moves through her classes like a ghost, present but untouchable. She feels the weight of stares, hears the whispers that trail behind her like shadows. Did you see that? She didn't even care. Carlos looked pissed. She doesn't react, doesn't engage. But she knows this isn't over. Carlos isn't the type to let challenge go unanswered. By lunch, the tension has thickened. The cafeteria buzzes with the usual chaos, but there's an undercurrent now. Something electric, something waiting. Mae takes her usual seat at the empty table, unpacking her lunch with the same deliberate motions as before. Across the room, Carlos lounges at the center table, surrounded by his followers. He's louder today, his laughter sharp-edged, his gestures exaggerated. He wants attention, wants everyone to see that he's unfazed. But Mae sees the way his gaze keeps flicking toward her, sees the way his jaw tightens when she doesn't look back. Halfway through the period, a shadow falls over her table. She doesn't need to look up to know who it is. Carlos leans down, bracing one hand on the table, his voice low enough that only she can hear. Not much of a talker, huh? His breath smells like mint gum and something bitter underneath. Mae doesn't flinch, doesn't look up. She takes a slow bite of her sandwich, chewing deliberately before setting it back down. Carlos's fingers twitch against the table. He's not used to being ignored. He straightens, his voice rising just enough to carry. Guess they don't teach manners wherever you came from. A few snickers ripple through the nearby tables. Mae exhales, then finally looks up. Her gaze meets his, steady, unflinching. There's no fear there. No anger either. Just quiet. Endless, infuriating quiet. Carlos's smile turns brittle. He opens his mouth to say something else, but the bell rings, cutting him off. For a second, he doesn't move. Then, with a sharp jerk of his chin, he turns and stalks away, his friend scrambling to follow. Mae watches him go. She knows what comes next. He won't stop now. Not after this. And she'll be ready. The morning air carries a crisp chill as Mae approaches her locker, the metallic scent of autumn mixing with industrial cleaner. Her fingers pause on the combination lock, noticing the unnatural resistance before it swings open to reveal the vandalized interior. Crude slurs crawl across the metal in permanent marker, the angry black lines forming words meant to cut deep. A single glance tells her everything: the handwriting, the choice of insults, the petty fury behind each stroke. She exhales slowly, the warmth of her breath visible in the cold hallway. Without hesitation, she removes her notebook, carefully wiping away the ink smudges with the edge of her sleeve. The motion is methodical, unhurried, as if cleaning minor dust rather than hateful graffiti. Around her, students slow their steps, watching with bated breath for the explosion that never comes. The bell rings. Mae closes her locker with a quiet click, leaving the defaced door as it is, a silent testament to Carlos's impotent rage. Lunchtime brings a new performance. The cafeteria hums with nervous energy as Mae takes her usual seat. She's barely settled when a stumbling classmate sends a full carton of grape juice cascading over the back of her chair. The purple liquid spreads in viscous tendrils, dripping onto the floor with rhythmic splashes. A hush falls over the nearby tables. Mae rises smoothly, her movements deliberate. She retrieves napkins from the dispenser, each fold and press of paper against fabric executed with surgical precision. The juice stains remain, dark blossoms on light fabric, but her clothes are otherwise untouched. When she sits again, it's in a different chair, her back straight, her meal continuing as if the interruption never occurred. Carlos watches from his throne at the center table, his fingers drumming an uneven rhythm against the laminate surface. His smirk falters when she doesn't glance his way, not even once. The whispers around him take on a new tone, less mocking, more curious. His grip tightens around his soda can, the aluminum denting under his fingers. After school, the parking lot stretches empty save for lingering students. Mae adjusts her backpack straps, her breath forming small clouds in the cooling air. She's 3 steps from the sidewalk when Carlos materializes in her path, his Letterman jacket blocking the fading sunlight. He stands with practiced casualness, one foot planted on the bumper of a parked car, his arms crossed over his broad chest. His friends fan out behind him, forming a loose semicircle. The message is clear: there's no easy exit. Mae stops, not in fear but in assessment. Her dark eyes meet his, unflinching in the golden afternoon light. The standoff stretches, seconds ticking by in silence, broken only by distant traffic and the rustle of falling leaves. Then, the purr of an engine cuts through the tension. A black Rolls-Royce glides to the curb, its matte finish absorbing the sunlight rather than reflecting it. The doors open with a whisper of precision engineering, and the man who emerges commands attention without speaking a word. His tailored suit drapes over a frame both powerful and controlled, every stitch conveying quiet authority. The air itself seems to still as his polished Oxfords meet pavement. Carlos's posture changes instantly. His foot slips from the bumper, his shoulders squaring unconsciously as his body recognizes power before his mind processes it. The man, Mae's father, doesn't glance at the gathered students. His attention rests solely on his daughter, his expression unreadable behind designer sunglasses. Mae walks forward without hesitation. Her father opens the rear door with a gloved hand, the gesture smooth and practiced. As she slides into the supple leather interior, the last thing she sees is Carlos's face, the confusion, the dawning realization, the first cracks in his carefully constructed dominance. The car door closes with a sound like a vault ceiling. Through tinted windows, Mae watches as her father turns his head slightly, just enough for Carlos to see the cold calculation in his profile. It lasts only a second before he joins her in the vehicle, but the effect is immediate. Carlos takes an involuntary step back. The Rolls-Royce pulls away silently, leaving behind a stunned silence. The last rays of sunlight catch the custom license plate as it disappears around the corner, the numbers and letters forming a code that only certain people would recognize and fear. Inside the car, Mae's father removes his sunglasses, revealing eyes as sharp and unreadable as his daughter's. He doesn't ask about the boy in the parking lot. He doesn't need to. The quiet between them speaks volumes. Mae looks out the window as Richmond blurs past, the streetlights flickering to life one by one. Somewhere behind them, Carlos Mendoza is still standing in that parking lot, his worldview shifting in ways he can't yet comprehend. And Mae, she allows herself the smallest of smiles, knowing the game has just changed forever. The whispers start before first period even begins. They slither through the hallways of Riverside High, curling around lockers and slipping into classrooms, carried on the lips of students who weren't even there to witness what happened. The black Rolls-Royce. The man in the suit who didn't need to raise his voice to command silence. The way Carlos Mendoza, untouchable golden boy Carlos, had taken an unconscious step back. By second period, the story has already mutated. Some say the car had government plates. Others swear they saw armed security inside. A few even whisper that Mae's father isn't just rich. He's the kind of powerful that operates in shadows, the kind that doesn't need to threaten because his mere presence is warning enough. Carlos hears it all. He sits at his usual desk in English class, his jaw clenched so tight it aches. His fingers tap an uneven rhythm against the desktop, his gaze fixed on the empty chair 2 rows ahead, where Mae hasn't yet arrived. The whispers crawl over his skin like insects, each one digging deeper under his defenses. She was supposed to be nothing, just another quiet transfer student who would either break or disappear by semester's end. But now she's something else entirely, and Carlos can't stand it. When Mae finally walks into class, the room doesn't go silent, but it shifts. Conversations dip slightly. Eyes flick toward her, then away. Even the teacher pauses mid-sentence, as if sensing the change in the air. Mae takes her seat without hesitation. Her posture is the same as always, straight but relaxed, her dark curls pulled back into a simple ponytail. There's no smugness in her expression, no gloating. If anything, she seems even more untouchable than before, as if the incident in the parking lot was so insignificant it didn't even warrant her attention. Carlos's pen snaps between his fingers. He doesn't realize he's broken it until ink bleeds across his skin. The escalation is inevitable. Carlos has never been good at backing down, and he sure as hell isn't going to start now. If Mae thinks one fancy car and a mysterious father are enough to scare him off, she's sorely mistaken. So he doubles down. It starts small, a shoulder check in the hallway that sends Mae stumbling into the railing of the stairwell. Her books scatter down the steps, her palms scraping against the rough concrete as she catches herself. A few students gasp. Someone laughs nervously. Carlos doesn't stop to watch her fall. He keeps walking, his chest tight with something that isn't quite satisfaction. Mae doesn't call after him, doesn't even make a sound. She simply picks herself up, gathers her things, and continues to class as if nothing happened. The lack of reaction only fuels him. By lunch, the rumors have taken on a life of their own. Whispers slither through the cafeteria, about Mae, about her family, about why she's really here. None of them are true. Most don't even make sense. But Carlos doesn't care. Let the school talk. Let them wonder. The more uncertainty swirls around her, the more control he regains. Except, Mae still doesn't react. She sits alone at her usual table, eating her lunch with the same quiet focus as always. The whispers don't make her flinch. The stares don't make her uncomfortable. If anything, she seems almost amused. Carlos's fingers tighten around his soda can. This isn't how it's supposed to go. His next move is more calculated. A group project in history class pairs him with Mae and 2 other students. The teacher, oblivious to the tension, assigns them a presentation on power dynamics in post-colonial societies. The irony isn't lost on Carlos. He takes charge immediately, delegating the most tedious research to Mae with a smirk. She accepts without complaint, her expression unreadable. When they meet after school to compile their work, Carlos makes sure his friends are there too, loitering at the edges of the library, watching, waiting. Mae doesn't acknowledge them. She spreads her notes across the table, her handwriting precise, her research thorough. Carlos scans it with disinterest, then deliberately knocks his coffee cup over, sending dark liquid spilling across her papers. "Oops," he says, not sounding sorry at all. Mae looks at the ruined notes, then at Carlos. For the first time, he thinks he sees something flicker in her eyes. Not anger, not frustration, but something far more unsettling. Patience. She knows. She knows exactly what he's doing, and she's letting him do it. Carlos's stomach twists. The mistakes start small. A snide comment to a teacher that crosses the line from confident to disrespectful. A shove in the hallway that's a little too hard, a little too public. A text thread leaked to the wrong person, filled with cruel jokes about classmates he thought were his friends. Each slip is minor on its own, but together, they paint a picture, and Mae watches it all unfold with quiet, knowing eyes. Carlos doesn't realize what's happening until it's too late, until the whispers about Mae slowly shift to whispers about him. Morning announcements at Riverside High always follow the same predictable pattern. The crackle of the intercom, the principal's droning voice listing club meetings and lost items, the flicker of the projector screen displaying school logos and pep rally dates. Today is different. The screen in the auditorium flickers to life, not with the usual slideshow, but with a series of text messages. The font is large, impossible to miss from any seat in the room. At first, there's confusion, murmurs, scattered laughter, someone joking about a tech malfunction. Then the words register. The laughter dies. The messages scroll slowly, each one more damning than the last. Racist jokes sent to teammates after a loss. Threats against a sophomore who dared to sit at Carlos's usual lunch table. Plans to frame a former friend for cheating on a test, complete with photographic proof of Carlos planting the notes himself. The auditorium falls deathly silent. Carlos sits frozen in the front row, where the football team always claims their seats. His fingers dig into the armrests, his knuckles bleaching white under his skin. For one terrifying second, he's convinced this is a nightmare, that he'll wake up any moment to his alarm blaring, his reputation intact. Then the whispers start. They ripple through the room like wildfire, spreading faster than he can track. He sees heads turn toward him, sees eyes widen, sees lips curl in disgust. His chair screeches against the floor as he launches himself toward the AV booth. The tech kid, some scrawny sophomore who usually trembles when Carlos looks at him, stumbles back as Carlos wrenches the door open. Turn it off. The command comes out strangled, raw with panic. The tech kid's hands shake as he fumbles with the controls, but it's too late. The damage is done. The messages have already cycled through twice. Every student in the auditorium has seen them. Every teacher. The vice principal standing in the back, her face hardening with each new revelation. Carlos's phone buzzes in his pocket, then buzzes again, and again. He doesn't need to check it to know what's happening. The screenshots are spreading. Group chats are exploding. By lunchtime, the entire school will have seen them, will have seen him for what he really is. The realization hits like a physical blow. This wasn't an accident. This was a trap, and he walked right into it. The fallout is swift and merciless. His teammates, the ones who laughed at his jokes in private, won't meet his eyes in the hallway. The girl he's been hooking up with blocks his number before third period. Even his teachers watch him with new wariness, their trust evaporating in the span of a single morning. The worst part, Mae is nowhere to be seen. She's not in homeroom, not at her usual lunch table. It's as if she's vanished, leaving behind only the wreckage of his reputation in her wake. Carlos spends the day in a daze, his thoughts racing. Who could have done this? How did they get his messages? He's always been careful, always used disappearing chats when it mattered. Unless, the realization strikes him like lightning. The group project, the library computer he'd logged into to proofread their presentation, the 5 minutes he'd left his phone unattended on the table while he went to the bathroom. He'd been played. And the worst part, Mae hadn't even needed to lift a finger. She just waited, patient as a spider, while he tangled himself in his own web. By final bell, the damage is irreversible. The football coach pulls him aside, his expression grim. There's talk of suspension, of losing his captaincy. The scholarship offers that seemed so certain a week ago now hang by a thread. Carlos walks to the parking lot in a haze, the weight of 100 stairs pressing against his back. For the first time in his life, he understands what it feels like to be powerless, to be prey. And as he reaches his car, he sees it, a single black feather tucked under his windshield wiper. A message, a reminder. The game was never fair. And Mae was never playing by his rules. The halls of Riverside High breathe differently now. The air moves more freely through the corridors, no longer thick with the tension that once followed Carlos Mendoza like a shadow. Locker doors slam with their usual rhythm, but the sound carries no undercurrent of fear. Students cluster in their usual groups, but the hierarchy has shifted, not with a dramatic overthrow, but with a quiet, natural realignment. Mae walks these hallways with the same measured steps as always, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her expression calm. The stares that once prickled at her skin like needles have dissolved. Now, when eyes follow her, it's with curiosity, with something approaching respect. She passes the bulletin board near the principal's office, where a freshly printed notice hangs in the place once reserved for football team announcements. The paper is stark white against the faded cork, the black letters spelling out what everyone already knows. Carlos Mendoza has been removed from the team roster. No explanation given. None needed. The trophy case nearby still gleams under fluorescent lights, but the football trophies seem to gather dust faster these days. The space where Carlos's team photo once dominated now sits empty, a silent testament to how quickly crowns can tarnish. Mae doesn't pause to look. She already knows what she'll see. The cafeteria hums with its usual midday chaos, but the energy has changed. The center table, once Carlos's undisputed throne, now hosts a rotating cast of students. No single group claims it for long. Power, once concentrated, has scattered. Mae takes her usual seat at the periphery, unpacking her lunch with the same deliberate motions as always. The chair across from her scrapes against the floor, and she looks up to see the girl with round glasses from weeks ago, the first and only person who dared sit with her, settling in with a tentative smile. This time, Mae doesn't simply tolerate the company. She nods in quiet acknowledgement, a small victory of her own. Across the room, Carlos sits alone at a corner table, his broad shoulders hunched over his tray. The Letterman jacket is gone, replaced by a plain hoodie. His usual entourage has dissolved, some distancing themselves publicly, others simply fading away like morning mist. He doesn't look at Mae, doesn't look at anyone. The silence around him is louder than any laughter ever was. The final week of the quarter passes in unremarkable rhythm. Classes wind down. Teachers collect textbooks. The promise of summer hangs in the air, sweet and light. On the last day, Mae stands near the school's entrance, the morning sun warm on her face. The black Rolls-Royce glides to the curb precisely at dismissal, its matte finish absorbing the sunlight rather than reflecting it. The door opens before the car comes to a complete stop, and Mae's father steps out. He looks exactly as he did weeks ago, impeccable suit, sharp features, an aura of quiet command. But this time, there's something different in the way he watches his daughter approach. A subtle tilt of his head, a barely there softening around his eyes. Pride. Mae meets his gaze and allows herself a small, private smile, the first genuine one she's worn since arriving at Riverside. Her father doesn't speak, doesn't need to. His gloved hand rests briefly on her shoulder as she passes, a silent acknowledgement of the battle she's won without ever throwing a punch. The car door closes with a whisper of precision engineering. Through the tinted window, Mae takes one last look at the school that tried to break her. It stands unchanged, the same red brick, the same tired flag fluttering in the breeze. But the air around it is different now, lighter. As the Rolls-Royce pulls away, Mae doesn't look back. Somewhere in the emptying parking lot, Carlos Mendoza watches the car disappear around the corner. His hands are shoved deep in his pockets, his once confident posture slumped. The scholarship offers have dried up. The college scouts have stopped calling. The future that seemed so certain now stretches before him, shapeless and uncertain. He turns toward his own car, an aging sedan with peeling paint, and fishes for his keys. As he pulls them from his pocket, something flutters to the ground. A single black feather. He stares at it for a long moment before crushing it under his shoe. The lesson, it seems, is over. Power, true power, doesn't announce itself with shouts or fists. It moves in silence. It waits. It watches. And when it strikes, it leaves no fingerprints, only consequences. Mae Carter knows this better than anyone, and Riverside High will never forget it.